Hello and welcome to Programming with Purpose. Here we are in week 1. I'm looking forward to getting started and working with all of you. We have lots to learn from each other, so let's jump in. For this first week, we are focusing on the purpose part of Programming with Purpose. We all want purposeful programs, and I'm guessing we are all working very hard to create and support purposeful programming at our libraries. But as we chug along each day, it can be very hard to pause and really think about our purpose for doing the things that we do, our library's values, and whether our programs align with those values. So, to dive into the what and how of purposeful programming, we have to start with our values, and our values really create the why. Why do we support, plan, lead, prioritize, and promote the programs we do? Understanding your library's why is a really critical first step. No matter your role or your responsibilities, knowing your library's values provides key insight and direction for your work. So, our focus this week is getting clarity around the why and taking stock of the programs you're currently supporting. And this will help identify the places you're already aligning your programs with purpose and some areas of opportunity. We're going to start by looking at what we call your library's guiding documents. Each library will have a different set of guiding documents, but here are some examples that many of you will likely be able to find at your library. So first, mission, vision, and values there on the left, which is kind of like, what is your library committed to? If you don't know your library's core mission or values, find out. Write them down, memorize them, post it somewhere. Look often and consistently ask yourself how your programs support mission, vision, values. Many libraries have a mission, many libraries have a vision. Values, some will, some won't. At my library, we do have values, and one of those is connection. So here's a quick example of how that value really ties into one of our programs. So one of my colleagues puts a caregiver conversation prompt on a whiteboard after story time, and while the kids are playing, this prompt encourages the adults in the room to chat and to get to know each other. So this tiny action that just takes a couple of minutes directly contributes to cultivating a feeling of connection among folks in the room. So there's kind of an example of when thinking about your mission, your vision, and your values, how we might make some connections there. Now, another great place to look is if your library has any large goals or a strategic plan or direction. So this helps you really identify what your library has said is most important. So for example, at SPPL, we do have a current strategic direction, and one of our goal areas is to make the library a great place for families to learn. And so knowing that in the last couple of years, as we focused on creating more engaging, interactive, and creative play spaces, we look at those spaces and we know that a variety of ages use them, from caregivers and infants to school-aged kids and even sometimes teens watching younger siblings. So rather than focus our play areas on sort of a 0 to 5 age group, which is pretty common for library play areas, we said, let's make sure we're focusing on families and what families can learn. And so we've really intentionally included activities that appeal to young children and older ones. And what we've seen is more cooperative, interactive play among youth of all ages and their caregivers. So there's an example of using a guiding document of a strategic direction to think about informing your programs. Now, another piece that you could think about is your budget. So where we invest our money says a lot about our priorities, and it's very possible that our expenses aren't actually lining up with the purpose we hope to achieve. So think about where your library prioritizes funding. For example, if you have a large budget for maker activities, maybe that connects to your library prioritizing programs that spark curiosity. When you're thinking about budget, also think about your staff time, which is money, and it's probably the single biggest expense that any of us have. So think about where your library wants to prioritize staff time, especially when it comes to programming. Do you really care about connecting with community partners and doing joint programs? Maybe you really want to focus on certain age groups. Maybe there are other populations that you're really specifically trying to reach and focus on. So those are some examples of guiding documents, but there might be others that are really important to your library. So really think about and do some digging around. Where are the places where you can learn about how your library sees its priorities? All right, that is a lot to take in for the moment. So we're going to pause and take a brain break with my adorable dog Sprout. So pause the video, take 3 deep breaths, and then come back when you're ready. All right, so we just learned about guiding documents, and one thing you'll probably notice about your guiding documents is that they're very broad, and so it can feel a bit overwhelming to know exactly how your work or your specific programs connect to those big, lofty guiding documents. One way to begin making these connections is to create a program matrix, which is what we have on the screen right here. I learned about this concept from Amy Kuster, who's a colleague of mine at the Skokie Public Library. So this matrix includes your audience across the top row, and then on the left-hand column are your program themes. So the kinds of programming you want to do for your audience. So filling out this matrix is a great way to identify where you are already supporting purposeful programs, where you have gaps, and where you may be running programs that don't really contribute to your goals. So anybody can create a program matrix, whether you work in a small, medium, or large library. We all have different audiences that we're serving and some specific themes or some specific types of programs we want to be running. And so if you're in a small library, you can do this. If you're in a really big library, maybe you're looking at some broader program themes or some wider audiences, but this is going to work for you no matter what. So when you're filling this out, you're going to start by identifying your audience. And when we look to our guiding documents, maybe that helps us figure out what kind of audience we're trying to serve, or maybe it's a specific demographic that you work with because of your job. So maybe it's a certain age group, maybe it's a specific population in your community. Then you're going to think about the types of programs you want to be offering, and these should be broad categories. As you're coming up with these, remember to think about your guiding documents. What are they telling you about who you're serving and your goals for those audiences? Once you've identified those things, you're going to fill in the grid with programs that you're already running. And as you're thinking about your programs, if you have ones that don't really fit, that's okay. That's actually a good thing because it's a sign that you might want to tweak that program to better align with your goals, or even consider pausing it altogether if ultimately you realize it's really not serving the audience that you want, or it's not really aligning with the specific program themes that you're looking to provide. Once you have that all filled out and you can see the places where you have holes, or perhaps you don't have as many programs that you would like, that's how you figure out what your program opportunities are. And that's okay. If there are holes, if there are gaps, we actually want that because that's helping us figure out where are the places we can put our time and our energy, and where are the places where we have programs that are already purposeful, that are already supporting our bigger goals. So it's a win-win when you're looking at the programming matrix to see what you're already doing really well and where you have opportunities to grow. All right, here is an example from my library. We are a larger system with both locally provided programs at specific branches and then system-wide programs that happen at all of our libraries and might be scheduled by one specific person or team. So my matrix is going to include some larger programs and initiatives that all of our libraries support. But if an individual branch were to fill this out, they would do the same thing. They would just identify the specific programs at their branch. So if we look to the top, the guiding documents to keep in mind, for me, I wrote down our mission, our vision, our values, and our strategic direction. Now, the values really stuck out to me. The 4 values are learning, curiosity, connection, and belonging. And so those are things that I'm trying to really keep in mind as I'm thinking about our programs and how they might support that. So I filled everything out, and now that I've done that, it's really much easier to identify the places that we have opportunities to fill in. And so as I move forward and think about filling those gaps, I'm going to recognize that we need more arts and culture programs for school age kids, or we need more STEM and maker activities for early learners. And as I think about filling in those gaps with programs, I'm really going to keep in mind that our values, learning, curiosity, connection, and belonging, should be some solid foundational elements that I'm building off of when I'm thinking about those programs. I'm guessing you are going to have some gaps as well, and that is okay. The purpose of this exercise is not to feel guilty about doing too little. It's about finding the places we can invest our time and energy. Our programming is always a work in progress, and you may always have gaps in some areas, and that is absolutely okay. All right, now we're going to talk about everyone's favorite activities, homework. So this week, our out of class work is going to focus on you identifying your own guiding documents and creating a program matrix. This is going to really prepare us for next week when we're going to start talking about design thinking to tackle programming opportunities or challenges. One quick note that I want to make on the readings for this week is that it is pretty hard to find a lot of additional content about this topic because this work is so experiential and in some cases was created by colleagues who haven't written about it. There is an article about leadership in school librarianship, and I recognize that might not pertain directly to everyone's work, but it does support the idea that being strategic, mission-driven, and thoughtful is a powerful way to lead. And this course's content and tools should help you become a more powerful leader. So keep that in mind as you're going through the reading. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit more specifically about homework. So you're going to identify your library's guiding documents and look at them. If you have to do digging or asking around to find them, that is absolutely fine. And then using your guiding documents, you're going to create your own program matrix. There is a template provided, or you can make your own. The important thing, the key elements to include are who's your audience, what are your general program themes, and what relevant information from your guiding documents do you want to keep in mind. Then this week there are going to be 3 discussion posts. So the first one is going to be introducing yourself. So your name, where you work, your role, and what you hope to get out of this course. Then for your second post, you're going to share your program matrix, and this could be a photo or a document or a link, and then write a short reflection about what you learned by doing this exercise. Then your third discussion post is going to be respond to at least one of your classmates. More specific information and exact instructions are, of course, on our course website. All of our assignments are due by 11:59 p.m. on Sunday, so just a reminder that that's the timeline we're looking at. And if you have questions or if you need help, please reach out. I'm always happy to think through or brainstorm or answer questions. So don't put yourself in a situation where you're not sure what to do and you're struggling. I am here to help you. So if you need it, just let me know. I look forward to seeing what all of you come up with and hearing your reflections on the discussion boards. Thanks and have a good week.